Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Shaira Mirjahani, CEO of Flowgen. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Flowgen is your AI powered content creation and distribution assistant. Our platform creates you weeks of new content based on the context you feed to the platform, which are basically long form videos or audios. And it creates you engaging short clips, social posts, tweets, and so much more. This webinar is part of an exciting series we're running at Flowgen. Throughout this series, we're going to dive into all things AI and content creation. Basically, talk about all things how to work smarter, not harder, the best AI tools out there, our practical strategies that you can start using right away to save tons of time on your content creation. And today, I'm thrilled to introduce our amazing guest speaker, Ashley Gross. Ashley has been doing incredible things in AI space long before it became the buzzword it is today. She's got this amazing track record of helping businesses make AI work for them, and not just in theory, but in practice. In fact, before ChatGPT was even on most people's radar, she helped companies to boost their pipeline to $115 million by solving real problems with AI. And what I love about Ashley and Ashley's approach is that she just doesn't focus on the tech side, but she's also a marketing strategist, and she makes sure that AI actually aligns with what businesses are trying to achieve. And without further ado, I wanted to invite Ashley to come onto the stage. Ashley, would you like to come and share your insights with us?
Hi, sure. I would love to share my insights. I don't know about more of an introduction because I think that you nailed it pretty spot on, though.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, thanks for having me, and I'm excited to be here. Should we jump into the presentation and start?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. So hopefully you can see my presentation, possibly, maybe.
Not right now, but I think,
Here we
yeah,
go.
yeah,
Okay.
here we go.
So today we are here to talk about our content strategy, specifically using AI. I always like to make the joke that I'm many things, right? I own my own agency where we consult for enterprise companies. I'm a course creator. I teach workshops, speaking engagements. But at the end of the day, it comes down to I create a ton of content all the time, 24/7. It's the foundation for all of my offerings. And so I really wanted to come on here today and just kind of talk about a content strategy because I think that so often we are kind of glamorized by AI tools and what they can and can't do. But at the end of the day, whatever your product or service is, if you don't have good content to market what your offerings are, at the end of the day, you're probably creating a ton more busy work for yourself whenever it comes to actually marketing your product and services. So here's a little bit about my AI journey. We touched on this briefly, but in 2020, I started using AI in my personal workflows, really with the intention and the goal of doing more with less, but also having a 40-hour work week consolidated into 15 hours. I had a newborn back at the time. He's almost 4 now, which breaks my heart, but I had a lot less time back in 2020. And so using AI tools to really consolidate that work week and create the exact same value and outcome as I would in a 40-hour work week was the first priority. Once I was able to do that, then I started really taking a look at my role as a demand generation marketer and really thinking about how can we implement AI to not just do my job as a demand generation manager, but also help the overall business's health and connect what marketers are doing to the product team, to the sales team, and kind of create this nice little life cycle. And so in 2022, I created the AI task force at a e-commerce company that I was working for at the time, while also being a demand generation manager. I grabbed one person from every single department and got them together and just kind of went around the table and said, I've been doing all of these things with AI on my own. Here's the main problem that the business has this quarter. How can each of you and your departments contribute to solving that problem? And then from there, we really just took the approach of being AI enabled, which is just a fancy way of saying, okay, we know how to solve this problem individually and departmentally. How can we do this with AI? So, how can we do this better, faster, more optimized, less silos and fragmented communication? Long story short, we ended up doing that. And within 3 months and 25 AI use cases later, we actually overachieved our annual pipeline target by 25 million, which was crazy. And then once I saw that outcome, I obviously was just never going back to the old ways. And I kind of doubled down on AI, if you will. I started my own agency. I started teaching people a lot more because there's always way more that we could be doing. Tools are just tools at the end of the day. And it's one more thing that you have to take the time to onboard yourself to and learn. So having an AI enabled approach and training others on how to do the same has really been helpful, I think, for me, because if there's something that you have to do every day more than once, there's probably an AI tool or an automation or an agent that can help you do it, so that you can get back to doing more of the strategic work that us humans are really unique at solving and doing, and kind of automate a lot of the busy work that bogs you down. So that was a little bit of my AI journey. And so, how this kind of ties into content is when you think about how to become an AI champion for content creation in your organization, I really like to think about what are the ways that you and your unique positions in your company right now can think about volumizing your impact, right? So, like if you're in the product team, for instance, you're working every single day with a company's technology and you know the ROI, you know the best selling points. But so often we start to see silos in communication when product tries to communicate that to marketing or tries to communicate that to sales. And we lose those magical moments. Whereas if there was an AI tool that was already plugged into product so that when product was putting together, let's just say, a new product, right? And they were taking it to market, there was already an AI tool that could kind of create that content and not lose any of those meanings or meaningful pieces that went into creating that is uniquely from the perspective of product. And then they could ship that over to marketing, and marketing with their own unique perspective could take those insights and tailor them to match, the audience and marketing and so on and so forth, and just create this really beautiful domino effect, I guess you could say. Here's my cheat sheet for you. If you want to go from a learner to a leader as far as becoming that AI champion for content, the first step is always to identify the problem. And this is kind of like the little process we're going to use throughout this whole entire slide deck just to keep us on track, because I tend to go off on my little squirrel tangents, as my husband calls them. So, first, you need to find the problem. So, this was my problem statement specifically, and I share that so you can start to think about maybe what your problem statements were or are today. So, mine was I faced time consuming workflows that made it challenging to deliver high quality content while managing the limited hours in my work week. This is a really nice way of saying in my own problem statement that I was spending 12 hours a week every single Sunday creating content for 8 different channels. And that was just for 1 week of content for 8 channels. That's an insane amount of time to spend on a Sunday. I like to do nothing on my Sundays. That's my personal preference. Even if you don't, I think just having the freedom to not have to spend 12 hours creating content is nice and it's refreshing. So I started with my problem statement. I wrote it down. I made a note of how I really needed to start working on this. So, as I was thinking about my problem statement, I started thinking about, okay, what are the business problems that I'm facing? Well, content creation is making up 90% of my work, and it's taking me 12 to 13 hours to produce 1 week's of content, right? 1 week's worth. So I can assess how my role is contributing to the solution. So what I did was I quite literally just started mapping out my workflow, right? And that kind of leads to step 2. So I kind of already cheated, but I mapped out my workflow. And all I did was I grabbed a Miro board. It's called Workflow Diagram. It's free. I love a free tool. And I wrote down for every single social media channel, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, here's the platforms I'm going into to create content. Here's how I'm editing the content. Here's how I'm scheduling and posting the content. Here's how I'm performing retros. I mapped it all out, which stinks, quite frankly. Nobody wants to write down all the things they're doing because most of the time we're not aware of how much time we're spending on tasks. And having a workflow is kind of like a painful way of reminding you how much time you're spending doing these things, but it's necessary. And so then from there, I use this free little extension called Toggle, Toggl, And I actually tagged how long it was taking me to create content per channel, all the steps I had to go through. And I tagged it. And I tagged it saying, I hate doing this. I love doing this. It's all in one window. It's super easy to use. And then that kind of gave me like a little bit of a muscle memory so that I now know all of the things I'm supposed to do to go into creating content. I'm not just assuming and going off of my memory. Like I actually have it documented somewhere so I can now train with AI tools, with automations, with agents. Like I actually have this living and digitized somewhere so that I can start asking for help and starting to outsource some of this work instead of just having it be in my little powerhouse of a brain memory and having to do this repeatedly on my own. So then after mapping workflows, this is the fun part. And this is quite literally what I mean when I said I grabbed a Miro board. I wrote down literally every single part of what goes into creating content so that I didn't have to have this process be like a staple in my day to day every Sunday for 12 to 13 hours. But it doesn't need to be anything fancy. This is quite literally what I'm talking about. This is my Miro workflow diagram, which again, you can get for free. So then here comes the fun part. Since you're now aware of how much time you're spending and what you're doing, you get to redesign this for efficiency. So again, I track my time using Toggle. I see the link in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then I redesigned my workflow using Flosion. I specifically really liked Flosion because whenever I'm creating content, I always go with my longest form first, which is always YouTube. And it's always like a 30 to 45-minute clip. So the idea that I could create that YouTube video, right? I could go into Riverside, record the video, edit in CapCut for filler words because I love to say and like I just did it and I didn't even mean to. And then I can upload that to YouTube and then use that one long form video and clip it for different social media channels using one tool. That was very, very helpful for me. So when I mapped this out in Miro and I was looking at this workflow, it was really easy for me then to say, okay, Flosion does XYZ, which replaces all of these parts from my workflow diagram. So I'm not giving away all of the tasks, right? Like I still want to be human in the loop. I'm a control freak, so I'm always going to want to have the final say in my content. It's my personal brand and my reputation, which means the world to me. So it's really just here are all the things I have to do. Where is the AI tool that I've already vetted that can replace XYZ activities, but still ultimately leave me as the user in full control of my brand? And then I optimized it for output because if I wasn't spending 12 to 13 hours every Sunday creating the content, I actually had more time to look at retros. And specifically, what I mean is whenever I say a retro, I will have my web scraping AI agent actually evaluate my past week's performance on all my social media channels, tell me what performed well, what didn't, how many comments, likes, questions, all of that fun stuff, so that not only am I just creating content and I'm not like just a content engine, I'm actually iterating it to be better than the week before. And that feels good for me because I don't want to just put things out there for the sake of putting them out there and adding more noise. I want to get better about delivering the pieces of content that people are actually asking for and they want and they need and they crave more of. That's, I think, just a good content creation principle in general. Okay, so here's actually how quickly Flosion works. This was a video I put up. I copy and pasted the URL in. It's analyzing my project and it's going to create LinkedIn posts as well as quotes, tweets, and then short 30, 60, 90-second clips, which I always crack up when you look at my face because it always pauses on like the worst parts of my facial impressions. But that's it. That was quite literally it. This was not sped up by any means. Like this was just the video of me going through this in one go. So when I say it's quick and it's definitely worth your time to look into, this is what I mean. And you'll probably see a lot of this on my LinkedIn, on my Twitter, and on my Instagram because it gives me the ability to create 30, 60, 90-second clips. I can actually, since I'm the one like recording my own videos and I internally know, okay, out of a 45-minute YouTube video, minutes 30 to 45 are really, really good. I actually clip it to the specific parts that I know are going to be good so that Flosion's only creating small clips during those times of the video. So it's really nice. Prior to that, I was using Riverside, but with Riverside, as you're recording the video, you actually have to like clip it in real time, which is very distracting. I don't know if it's just me, but I was having to like, as I said something good and I was recording it on my own, I would have to go like, oh, that was good. Go ahead and clip. And then I would have to like get back into it and stay into it. And that didn't even take into effect like after I edited the filler words out. I still had to do a second pass at it and edit it again. So definitely a huge amount of time saved. Um, but like I said, like my favorite part about implementing this tool and kind of making my workflow more efficient in general was testing and optimizing. And then sharing that knowledge, right? So if you want to be an AI leader in your organization around anything, but especially content, host a workshop, right? Like talk about what you're doing, just like we are now, where you say, like, okay, here's my YouTube video. I'm going to throw it into Flogen. We're going to see how this works. Did it get my brand voice right? Can I iterate this better? Are the words and phrases I'm using in line with what I want my audience to remember from me? You can always get better and iterate over time. And then just create tutorials because content is gold, regardless of what industry you're in or what product or service you have. So create a tutorial step by step and tell people how to do the same exact thing. The nice part about creating content is we all have our super sauce secrets that are very unique and niche to us. So we don't need to worry about, showing someone a tool like Flogen and worrying that like everyone's going to start using it and all of a sudden our content's going to start to stink. It just actually makes our experience as users scrolling on LinkedIn much better. I don't know about any of you, but like there's so many times where I've scrolled on a social media site and I've seen somebody who creates really, really good content put out a video. And I thought to myself, like, oh man, if you would have just started with like this hook, it would have like kept my attention a little bit longer. So I always like to say, like, create a step-by-step tutorial and share with people what you're doing. It makes your content better, it makes their content better. It's also going to help like the creative juices flow and help you get better about how to pitch your own services, or even little things like angles, hooks, for example. Um, Length of time for videos, right? You'll notice a lot of social media sites like LinkedIn, for example, are going more heavy on the videos. So creating tutorials is kind of quite literally storing what you're doing with algorithms and what's working in your long-term brain instead of short-term brain. And then just share before and after. This is really the final step in becoming a leader. We're all inundated with a million things every day. And so, even if you're doing something wonderful, don't assume people know about it. Tell them what you're doing and show them even better. And if you can tie it to revenue, that is the biggest ROI metric in my mind, because everybody speaks that language. Okay, so this is a little pre and post. I'm trying to stay true to my process. And the last process was to talk about before and after. So it's only fitting that I share with you what mine was. So again, it's taking me 12 to 13 hours to create content on Sundays. The workflows were very manual. I could not outsource it because I didn't have it digitized somewhere prior to actually forcing myself to. So nobody could help me. And I could not balance the workflow of creating content, but then also focusing on the more strategic work like brand deals, partnerships, creating net new courses that I wanted to be. Post Flogen, I am now spending, I want to say 30 minutes on 8 channels. And I say I want to say because I haven't felt the urge to time myself, because of exactly what you just saw when I shared Flogen's process from start to finish. It's quite literally less than 2 minutes. So for 8 channels, creating content and taking one YouTube video, for 8 days worth of content for a whole entire month is close to 30 minutes for me, which is really nice because I had to work 13 hours to create 1 week. And now I'm spending 30 minutes to create a whole entire month of content. So can't ask for anything more. Why I think this is a really cool topic and really what I want to kind of urge you to start playing around with this technology for is the future is definitely going to be multi-agent systems. So the quicker you adapt to the mentality of like, okay, here's all of my tools that I'm using for this one workflow right now. Is there a tool that can absorb a lot of these other tools? That will prepare you to have more of an excited, positive outlook on the future of AI in general, I think, because it's very much going in the wave of consolidation, right? We don't need a million more tools. I've been a marketer for 10 years. There's so many tools that we've been promised to integrate and play nice together, and they still don't. We don't need more tools for the sake of having more tools. We need less tools that do more. And so to get yourself kind of in the mindset of preparing for that wave, I would encourage you to play around with tools like Flogen that really do take a lot of the manual busy work off your plate and optimize them to the fullest, because that's definitely the trajectory that I myself and my business are on, as well as I want to speak for like the AI movement in general, where it comes to consolidating our tech stack and doing way more with way less. So that's my insights for today. I'm happy to answer questions. I will take down this slide deck. And yeah, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for presenting your process. And like I myself, I'm always eager to see what other content creators and marketers do generally, what tools they use, or like what is the process. So like today's focus was about the process. What parts do you do manually? What parts do you delegate to AI? And like basically what was your manual process, and like how you can automate it using Flowgene or other tools. So like while we're waiting for the audience to like share their questions in the chat, I also like wanted to ask you some questions.
Sure.
The first one is that like while I was talking to some of the audiences who registered for this webinar, I understood that some of them are in the middle of their journey to create content, any type of content, like long form, like webinars, podcasts, whatever, for their brand, uh, or like short form videos that are like, you know, just like they record some videos from scratch, these 1 minute bits, and then they edit it and then schedule it for their socials. But some of them are also like, they have the plan to create content in 2025 and they're still not sure where to start, or like, you know, how many content to post like, you know, each week. And like, you know, they don't have a calendar, they might be very fresh to the journey. So my question is, what's your recommended first step for someone who wants to start creating content in 2025 consistently?
I would say pay attention to like on per social media platform, like what is your audience per platform? And then like what are your products and services? And like how can you contextualize and communicate what you have to offer for that specific audience? Like write it down somewhere. You should have that answer very, very crystal clear. And you should also know what audience members you're missing. And then that should be the goal for your content in 2025, is to maintain the relationships with your current audience, but then go get that net new audience that you need. So really having like a good intentional why behind why you're creating content. That would be what my advice would be as far as where to start.
Okay, great. So in terms of like the steps in the process, like there's ideation, there's scripting, and there's like recording, then editing stuff and publishing. And so if you look at all these like steps, where do you delegate it to AI, and where do you delegate it to, like, you know, not to AI, and just like, you know, do it manually yourself? And if
Yeah.
there are any other tools that you use along the process that you think might be useful for others, I would love to know them as well.
Sure. So I would say when it comes to AI, my answer is always going to be I never use AI to create content. I always use it to reformat it. That's just my personal feelings, because only I know. I mean, sometimes I don't know and I'm like making it up as I go, but most of the time I know the direction I want to go with my content. And even though it feels very cringy to just start recording, right? Like on Riverside, I will literally just push play and just start talking. And then like it'll probably take me 5 to 8 minutes into that recording to start actually saying the things I wanted to say and get my words right. But like you got to give yourself some time to get like the thunking out of your system in order to like think, right? So like I usually have like a plan of I have this course coming up. I want to talk about the deliverables, what my audience is going to learn, who this course is for. And I'll go into that session and I will just talk to myself like I'm talking to the audience. And don't get me wrong, like I said, like the first 5 to 8 minutes, that's a wash, but that's cool. Like you're getting yourself comfortable. You're getting to the point where, you know, after you say something once or twice, even while you're doing this, you know, live, you're going to be like, oh, I could have said that better. And you can just say, like, I'm really bad about this. It's kind of funny, but I'll always say, all right, start over. And then I'll just like keep going. So then when I'm like deleting the parts in Riverside that I didn't like, I just have to search for the word start over and just delete those. And then once I have that video, you know, I like to start with video only because sometimes I know what I want to say, but I don't necessarily know how long it's going to appear. And so I like to start with video and then decide whether or not it should just be a post without video, a carousel, just straight up copy and nothing else, because you never know like how long something's going to be per channel until you get it out and you have like a little mini audit of like, okay, I just recorded this video promoting this course. It's a 5-minute video that can't fly on any social media channels. It can sit on YouTube, but like now let's analyze per social media platform, like what is the best way to talk about this. For LinkedIn, it's definitely a reel and it can be up to 3 minutes, right? Okay, great. Let's clip that video then to 3 minutes. That's good for Instagram. On LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn's algorithms love videos. They also love for the viewers to actually read the post for a long time. Super sneaky, fun insider trip for all you. If you have like the first 2 lines of your LinkedIn post and then add a space, automatically on LinkedIn, if you're scanning the feed, you have to click expand, which is telling LinkedIn that your content is valuable and people are looking at it. They're taking the time to. So maybe I make my LinkedIn post 5 lines of copy, right? And then add a little 30-second teaser in there using Flosion. Because I can get the quote or I can get my little LinkedIn post and a 30-second video within the same platform. And so I kind of just take this mental game and go through each channel. And that's really what I do. I also really like to, every quarter when like LinkedIn or Meta's reports come out on like what they're focusing on, right? And like what their algorithms are liking this quarter. I like to give that to Claude and tell Claude to like give me a summary of like what are the best practices for publishing, specifically how long, what is the frequency, is LinkedIn still liking carousels, or is it videos, or is it standard posts? Just those little things. And then having like a summary for like this quarter, here's what changed. That's really what I like doing. And then I would say like on top of that, each social media channel gives you a summary of like your analytics and impressions for the week before. Again, I'll just download all those as a PDF and give them to my agent. And then my agent sends me an email and it's like on Instagram this week, on LinkedIn this week. Maybe because you got X amount of questions on the topic of AI agents, you make 2 more videos, but you talk about X, Y, Z. So yeah, I would just say Flosion with Claude for looking at the algorithm reports and just like quarterly best practices in general. And then like I'm really into building agents. My company runs on lots of them. So I use Lindy to build my agents out and I can't say enough good things about them. But that would be my advice wrapped up and as far as tools I use.
I'm also gonna like ask you a lot of questions about AI agents as well,
Sure.
because like we are hearing it all like again and again that it's gonna be a big thing in 2025. I think it's not in the future, but it's in the now. So I also wanted to like if you're interested, we can have another session around like AI agents. How do you set up agents for yourself? What tasks do you like create them for, and how do you orchestrate all these agents to like do a full funnel content creation for you or for the clients? So I can if you're up to it, I can we can have this session. But so I wanted to ask you about let's say that you create some content and you post them out during the week. What is your process for like analyzing which post had the best performance and really take the insights into like, hey, like I should maybe more create more content around this topic? And do you use AI for that? Like um do you have an agent that like goes through all your posts on LinkedIn and like gets you to understand what like these ideas were the top performers, and like these are ideas that can be extended based on the initial ones, and like you help you with the scripts? And so like do you have any process there, or like do you plan to like do that in the future?
Sure. My process right now is I have a premium LinkedIn account. So it tells me where my audience is location wise. And so what I'll do is geographically, I will have my social media planned around those geographics. So right now, I believe it's New York, it's London, it's California. So if I have offerings, right, if I have courses, I really want to schedule them at 8 a.m. Local time. So if the bulk of my followers are in London and New York and East Coast, I'm going to go off of their 8 a.m. instead of California's 8 a.m. However, what I will do is I'll repost it at California's 8 a.m. so that they are seeing it for the first time. And I'll make sure that I'm engaging with my audience on LinkedIn's feed or in the comments section to be 8 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. European time, and then 8 a.m. California time. And then as far as like performing a retro, all I do is the report that lives on LinkedIn that tells you your analytics and impressions from the past week. I'll download all of that for all of my social media platforms, throw it into Claude, give it a summary of it if I want to. But that's what one of my AI agents is actually trained to do. So that's what they're doing is they are downloading those reports, they're putting them into Claude to get a summary, just with one prompt, and then they're sending me an email of like, here was your performance, frequently asked questions, top upvoted comments and likes.
Wow. Okay. I really want to see how that agent works. Maybe you can like record a video and like post it for all of us on LinkedIn to
Sure.
see not just how you coded it, but like how it works and like what are the processes in the middle. I'm sure that like a lot of us, because like there are also like some founders in the audience and they know how to code, but like they're new to the content. They want to create content for their brand and like build that presence on social media, but they don't necessarily, or they're not marketers, so they don't know the process. I think like the combination of like knowing how to code and like having all these processes, like learning this from a marketer and combining them to build their own AI agents is like it's super powerful. So I think some of the audience are asking the question, but I'm like for giving them a little bit of time to like think of what their top questions are. I'm gonna keep continuing with my questions. So the next one is that a lot of people are still not creating long form content, and by long form, I don't mean like a 30-minute podcast or anything longer than 10 minutes. Like even like a 10 to 15-minute content can be counted as a long form content. It basically like takes whatever knowledge and expertise you have like within yourself and like put it out there in the world, and you can like use it as a base context for every other content that you can create. But a lot of people are not doing it because they think it's hard, they're not good with camera, they're not good like presenters, which they can get better like after like 10 times of doing it. uh, but for these guys, do you like have any recommendation and like who should do long form for their brand, and like where they can start? Should they start a podcast, or like as you said, they can just like open Riverside and like record something for 5 or 10 minutes and then break it down to other content using
Yeah.
Flosion or other platforms?
I think that's a great question. I think it heavily depends on their comfort level recording content and then like who their audience is, right? So like when it comes to podcasts, those can be really intense to plan and choreograph, and edit as well. So I would say, know your audience, right? Like if you're selling e-commerce services, right, to C-suite decision makers, what do C-suite decision makers like? How do they learn? How do they prefer learning? It's probably a podcast, right? It might also be a newsletter. So maybe it's worth your time creating a podcast, but also like, what is the podcast going to be about? How do you know it's going to hit that audience, right? So I think really just taking, I would say, personalization to a whole other level and doing research on who your audience is, how they make decisions, how they learn, what channels they go to for finding those knowledge bites, and then making decisions that way. And then as far as answering your question on like who should be recording long form podcasts, or apologies, long form content, I would say you kind of have to have something for everyone. We live in a very instant gratification time where if your competition has a 15-minute video on how to do XYZ and you have a similar product or offering and you don't have that, then like that's a differentiator that your competition has. So I'm always a big fan of long form. I don't know why I'm getting tied up with this. It's like a tongue twister unnecessarily for me today. You should always have some kind of a long form content because there's somebody out there that does want to dig a little bit deeper. But also, if you start making it a discipline and a consistent practice to create long form content, it gives you more leverage later on to go back and reformat it. One of the best things that I encourage people to do is if you actually know your customer journey and you have that insight into like how are they finding you, how are they actually converting, 9 times out of 10 it's from old content. It's an old blog, it's an old white paper, it's an old podcast or YouTube video. So why would you go create 10 net new videos if you have one old video that's performing really, really well? Why wouldn't you reformat that into a blog or sound bites or little clips that you put on social media, right? So I always like to say go for the long form, because then you can always simplify it and re-optimize it and reformat it later. But what you can't do is create a lot of short form content and then wish you would have done it longer, because then you have to go back and re-record all of it. You can always decide how much of the content you use or don't use and when you do it. But if you're going to go through the energy of like making sure you're camera ready, recording yourself, listening to yourself, and having to edit your own voice, like just make it long form and then go back later and decide whether or not you want to use everything or nothing. But at least you recorded it.
Exactly. I think something that rarely people talk about is like the essence of creating short form content is totally different from creating long form content. Like long form content is for building trust, is for like talking about why you started your company, and like what are the use cases, what do you know about this industry that others don't, and like what is your secret sauce. And also like there's different topics that are like, what do you think this industry is going, or like what tools you're using on your daily basis that like that can be replaced by your new software that you're developing. I mean, my what I'm talking about is like founders who want to create content. So I myself, I have this struggle of creating long form content too, because like I'm shy on camera still, I'm trying to practice it, but I know that like if I want to build that trust on LinkedIn where my audience is, I have to talk about whatever I know in this industry, and that can only happen in long form. But like short form content is mostly about like just grabbing the attention, just to be discovered more, or also like use it as a video for your ad, like for your meta ads, for your Instagram ads, and they're like different. I don't say that you shouldn't create like either, but they're different. And if you want to build that trust, if you want to have enough content to post like almost every week in a month, you have to have that long form content, and then it's so much easier to like repurpose it into other formats, into a carousel, into maybe a soundbite, and like each time each like the different format can be like a test for you, an experiment for you to understand what people resonate with.
Right.
um
Well, and you said something too that's really important to hit on, though, is it's trust. We live in a very saturated time right now where there's lots and lots of AI content being written, to the point that like even when I see good content, I even have this thought of like, I wonder if that person wrote this or if it was like AI generated. So like even when I see good content, I'm always like questioning whether or not it was written by a human or if it was written by AI. And I think that that is why I'm so bullish on video content, because like this is something that AI can't do, right? Like AI avatars, they're terrible right now. They can't go like this, right? Like they can't count. If you see me like going like this, that's a dead giveaway. That's an avatar. But like this is what makes me relatable. So all the ums, all the likes, all the tongue twisters, this is what makes me human. And sales is human to human. It's always going to be, it always has been. So, if you're someone that like yourself that just said like, you're getting comfortable creating video content, just know that that's never going to go out of style, because in a world where we're inherently not as trusting as we used to be and everything's AI, we actually crave more human connection and more human content and relatability. And that is us turning on the camera and just being uniquely us.
so do you have any tips for people to get more comfortable creating long form videos?
None. You just have to do it. You just have to rip the band-aid and do it. At a certain point in time, it's I think just having the ideology of like fake it till you make it, but then like just know that you're never going to wake up and be like, I made it, I'm no longer scared. You're just going to genuinely stop caring, because like it just has to get done. Like it's something that has to get done. You look at it as a to-do list item that you want to cross off, and you just do it. But I would say, there's still some times when I'm recording content and I'm like, does anyone care? But like you just have to turn that part of your brain off and just put it out there and see what you get, right? Like this is kind of the part where it's fun, where you get to experiment a little bit, right? Like half of it's algorithms and math, but the other half of it is creativity. Do you like talking about certain topics more than others? Does your audience like talking about this instead of that, right? Like start just getting creative and trying a bunch of stuff. That's the only way you're going to know what works and what doesn't work, because everybody that is competing with you and has the same products and services, if they're all not creating video content, why would you do what they're doing? Right? Right? Like, wouldn't you want to do the one thing that they're not doing so that you're different than every other brand out there? And video content is that thing. Like, it's a lot harder to do because it's getting you out of your comfort zone. That's why people don't like doing it and why a lot of brands opt out of it. So do it, because it's kind of like a super skill of yours if you learn to embrace it and use it to your advantage if your competition isn't.
Exactly. And I always say that you shouldn't think of it as like traditional ways of doing, like of creating long form content. Like if you have a story from a recent customer and like you won a recent deal, or your customer is like really using your platform, you can just you record a video and just talk about the story of that customer, and like link it to what others can benefit from, why other people can use the software, or like just a story that may resonate with other people. To that can be a long form content. Or
Yeah.
like the other thing can be like if you like tinkered with a new tool and you wanted to show it to the world, and like you are linking it to your daily process, that can be a long form video as well. Like just record it, just share your screen for like 5 to 10 minutes and show how you work with that product and how it works in your daily process. It like all the content shouldn't be about the product, about your product. It should be about everything you're doing or hearing, or that is interesting for you like on a daily basis. So um, I think when you think of it that way, you will be more comfortable to create more long form content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we have two questions in the Q&A. We can go and yeah, we can answer them. I'm gonna add the first one here. Does Flowgen add any motion graphics or b-rolls in the videos, or does it just add captions? This is a great question. I'm gonna take on that. So right now we don't have any b-rolls, or we have motion graphics that are uploaded by the user, and you can actually like have it as a background of your video, but we don't add b-rolls automatically because um, basically our target audience and people who are using Flowgen actively, they don't really care about b-rolls, because like they don't care about like the videos to be that interesting, but they mostly care about like the efficiency, like how we take their like long form content into like 30 other pieces, like LinkedIn posts, like clips that are like a specific Q&A, cut it out from the content. So sometimes like b-rolls doesn't make sense for every videos, and mostly the videos that are uploaded into Flowgen are like webinars, or like podcasts that like two people are just talking about a specific thing, they're sharing knowledge or sharing information. But like b-rolls mostly make sense for short videos that are like um, that are like they're not talking about a concept, but like they're talking about like a very interesting like thing that has a call to action. So we didn't go that way in our product roadmap. And but yeah, you can add captions. Like that is like one of the most like basic things that Frogin does, which is adding captions to your videos. And you can like also customize it to your brand and everything. So the next question is, what is the good ratio for different post formats? Like if I'm posting 20 times per month, how many of them should be videos, and how many of them should be text posts or carousels? Ashley, do you want to take on that?
Sure. I would say specifically, you have to look at your analytics and impressions. Your audience might really, if your audience is busy C-suite executives, like maybe they're not watching the videos like on the clock because they don't want to necessarily like get caught doing that. So they're more prone to look at the carousels or just look at the, standard copy posts. So I would say double down and look at your analytics and impressions. I always like to use the rule of thumb of posting every single day at the same exact time, Monday through Friday. That's really, and then like let that go for 30 to 60 days. So I think it's less about testing like what formats you're using and more so just being consistent and maintaining it for a long period of time, like 30 to 60 days, like I said, just to have enough data to actually see some insights and be able to iterate a little bit better. So I would say it depends. It also depends, like for me personally, right now is a really busy quarter for me. So like there's not a lot of videos. There will probably be a lot more videos on the second and third quarter. So there's no rationale into like why I'm doing more videos certain times. It's mostly just like if I have the time to create content, I'm going to, and if I don't, I'm not going to push myself to do it because I know that I've got carousels and a ton of other content that I could write instead.
I also have an idea on this. Like, it also depends on what you're comfortable creating. Like, if you are a good designer, or you know how to make good carousels, I say like go for carousels like most of the time. But like if you are good on video, and like you think that your video content are working the best, like go for creating more videos. But there's also stats on like what works better on LinkedIn. Video is the first one, carousel is the second one, and text posts are the other third one that gets the most engagement. So I would not prioritize like text posts. I would try to at least post some images or some videos along with my like text posts for LinkedIn. um, but yeah, it also depends on what you're comfortable creating as well. Okay, so do we have Sharza, do we have any more questions? Okay. Paul is asking, how do you choose to optimize the thumbnail? How do you choose or optimize the
I'm going to be
thumbnail?
honest, I just have a Canva template and I use it the same exact way every single time. I mean, if I'm talking about like a specific tutorial where there's like a certain logo, then I'll throw that company's logo in. But I've got like 40 photos of like headshots of myself in the same exact template that I use each time. And I just will change out the photos or change out the title of the thumbnail. But that's it. I don't go crazy about the thumbnails. I do think that differentiation is good when it comes to thumbnails, but I don't I don't go bananas.
So how do you like, do you collect best practices in terms of titles on the thumbnail, or you just go creative, and how do you like go about it?
Yeah, I go really creative with thumbnails. As far as like actually naming, my YouTube videos and descriptions, that's all SEO based and like which keywords rank higher. But on the thumbnails, like that's not picked up. So I usually just test it out. If it's something where, let's just say I have an interview with the founder and it's a 15-minute interview, and I know like around minute 10, there's something crazy. Like they drop a product update or like a new agentic behavior that's going to be available soon, then like I'll choose to name my thumbnail that so that people know, hey, there's a hook coming. Like if you're watching this video and you haven't heard that hook yet, like keep watching because it's probably going to come up. But that's it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it always comes to like testing the thumbnail, and also whatever makes sense for your brand. Like we see a lot of creators on YouTube who are like posting funny thumbnails, but like it necessarily doesn't make sense for your brand as well. But like anything that shows your face, shows like you as a trusted person, that can be it. And sometimes you don't have to like show any face on the thumbnail as well. It depends on like your character and what you're comfortable with. We have another question. Ahmed is asking, what should a founder content be? Only about his product or about how they work? I love this question.
I would say your audience relates to what your product or service does for them. So, for example, I own an agency and like AI implementation is something that we offer. If I marketed like AI implementation and automations and AI agentic behaviors, I probably wouldn't have clients. But when I market and say, I created this automation so that every single time a Salesforce contact is updated, your AE doesn't have to actually go in and manually update it. They can text their agent, and their agent will update all of the fields and give you up to date notes in real time so that you can go to your son's baseball game every Thursday at 4 p.m. and not have to worry about going through your whole entire Salesforce and syncing all the data and making sure it makes sense. So like I would say like your content needs to show what your product or service does for their life, right? Founder stories are also really, really great because they make you more relatable. Everybody loves time and more money, but also being able to show that, you are managing sick kids and today you woke up at 5 a.m. and your schedule's chaotic, right? And like you post a funny selfie with like a small short post on LinkedIn saying like, some days this is what work looks like, who can relate, right? Like things that make you yourself, because you are the face of your products and services, something that makes you relatable, or content that makes what outcome your product or service has on your audience relatable. That's what you should post about.
Yeah. Two things to share here. One is that since COVID, there was a trend in what founders used to post on Twitter and LinkedIn, but mostly Twitter, which they call it build in public. Just basically founders sharing their story of how they're building their product day to day, like, what new features they are adding, or what is the challenge that they're struggling with this week, or any personal story that is resonating with their audience. They're shared, and like they're building their product in public day by day with their audience. That is like a very good theme of content that you can think of. And also the thing is that I myself, for Flowgene, I think of my content pillars in three themes. One is like inspirational, the other is educational, and the third one is promotional. So like, and when I want to plan my content for the month, I try to say like 30% inspirational, and by this is the founder stories, like the building public ones. The other 40% is educational, to educate about the industry, like, whatever I know about this industry that I think I can share with the audience, and like they can learn something from me and provide value for them. And the rest is like promotional, to talk about my product. And you can also like, for talking about the product, you can share customer stories. You can share like why your customers love your product, and what is the use case, and what new, like, customers you onboarded, and like what is the different use cases that people can think of, like, how they can use your product. Like these kind of things can be very useful when you want to plan your content for the entire month. Okay, let's see if we have more questions. There's this one. You use the video as a starting place, but do you ever start with other types of content and extrapolate from there, like blog posts?
Sometimes. I think it depends. So I always like to start with video because that usually takes the most amount of my time. But sometimes if I write like a blog post and I put it out, because sometimes I need to just like write and I crave that. Otherwise, I stop remembering how to write well. And sometimes I'll put a blog post out and it'll perform really well. So I'll say like, okay, well, maybe I should do a video to go along with this. But again, like that's very much the same thing as I'm iterating. I put something out. If it is well received and there's a craving for more, then I use those research pieces to create net new content. I never just like create it for the sake of creating it. I always like to see some kind of a fact or a figure that it resonates. People actually want to see this and it's worth the time to create it.
Yeah, I relate to that one. Um, okay, let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, there's this one. Thank you, Ashley. Very valuable. A bit off base, but are you able to recommend tools best for creating videos, like mic, lights, etc., for small businesses starting out on video creating?
Sure. So I use Riverside to record. I use CapCut to edit. I use Flowgen for specifically splicing and dicing the content into copy as well as video. And then I'm a big fan of Logitech. I'm looking around my devices right now. So I have the Logitech camera, keyboard, and microphone. And it does a really, really good job. It's not crazy expensive. I think the microphone was the most expensive and it was like $60. And I think the camera might have been 45. I've had it for years though, so I'm not quite sure. So don't quote me on it, but it gets the job done. And that's it. Yeah.
So, what do you think the most essential equipments are? Is it like all the things that you just mentioned, or
Yes. I would say
okay,
a microphone, lighting, a good camera, and then a good hosting platform so that when you're recording, it is also going to the cloud and storing and not just storing locally, because that's important. Like if you're recording and you have internet go out or something happens, you don't want to have to like recreate that. You want it to be pushed to the cloud like in real time. So that's why I use Riverside for recording.
perfect. Also, I'm asking Sharsa to, like, paste all the links that Ashley mentioned for folks to check out. Okay, so I think we are finished with the questions. We have 6 minutes to the end of the webinar, maybe for a few minutes, I would like to like ask you about like um, what are your predictions and uh, things that you think about for AI agents in 2025. Where do you see them, and like whatever you want to share in that area.
Sure. I think my predictions for 2025 are that we will see multimodal agents probably by middle of this year. As far as like what that looks like for the evolution of these AI companies, Zapier is a really great example of a company who already specialized in automation. And there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge bases and active forums that use them to create automations. And now they have chatbots and agents, and very good ones, by the way, because some of my agents are built on their platform. So I would start to say, like, whatever user experience fits best with the way you like to learn. If you've already been dabbling in Zapier, start learning how to build agents and agentic behavior in Zapier, because it's the same user experience. You're just building something different, and it's the same knowledge base, same forum. You're not really changing too many variables, but start to play around with building agentic behaviors for sure. We're going to start to see a ton of tech start to fall off, right? I consolidated my tech stack down to 3 tools because I don't need a calendar link, as well as a note taker, as well as a consultation form, if that can be one agent with different behaviors. Now you will chat with my agent. It will ask you questions on what you would like to talk to me about. It will find my calendar time when I'm available. It will block that time. It will send you the paywall to pay for my time. It will do all of these things. And so, again, I think just kind of to prepare yourself for consolidating, start to see what tools in your tech stack do things that maybe you didn't know about, right? Like lots of our marketing tools have AI functionalities and features that you probably don't already know about. So the need to go buy new AI tools or build automations or agents, you might not need them. You might just need to tap in and fully optimize your tech stack and all of the products and functionalities that you have now that you're probably paying for, by the way. And then see like, okay, I'm married to my tech stack. I love what it does. It's doing what I want. Now let's throw in some automations to connect these tools via API so that I can actually pull the insights out of them instead of opening up 10 different tabs and having to go find data points, right? And then you start building on agents and building agentic behaviors to manage those automations. But audit your tech stacks, start to play around with what automations could be implemented to bring more insights out of those data points, and then start to play around building agents to actually manage those for you. I love having emails from my agents because they'll tell me every question from anyone who form filled on my website within the last 30 days. And then the best part about agents not being automations are they're dynamic. So I don't actually have to tell them, hey, here's the answer to those questions that you didn't have in your knowledge base. Now it knows and it remembers without me having to train it. So now it's like a real intern actually picking things up, which is wonderful and beautiful because I don't want to spend all my time answering questions on my website and asking people, why they want to grab my calendar time. That's just not the best use of my time. And that doesn't fulfill my day on where I want to be spending my time. So it's a lot better for everyone if I'm spending time doing the strategic tasks I want to do. And it's also helping me kind of stay more intentional with my schedule and actually see where I'm spending a lot of my time. And if I actually do need to be spending that much time on those tasks, like if those tasks are actually bringing in the most ROI.
Um, can you share like what are the top 5 tasks you created an agent for or you want to create for content
Yeah.
creation and marketing?
For content creation and marketing, not a lot because I am a big rule follower. So LinkedIn specifically says don't use any automations or they will like close down your account. I don't play around with that. Like I follow those rules to a T. So I actually do read like the privacy policies. So there's no agents. If you send me a DM, it's always me answering. There's no automation, there's no agents. So whenever it comes to content, really the only thing I've built an agent for is to create slide decks for me based off of templates because I hate creating slide decks. And that's a form of content that I need multiple times a week. And then also creating blogs. So blog topics, I have a couple agents that'll scrape a couple different websites and find what people have the most questions about. You can do this manually by visiting Answer the Public and then typing in the keywords you want to talk about and seeing what people are asking. But I've just built an agent to do that for me. So again, same principle. I know that there's a need to talk about this content and I'm not going to just like create it in hopes that people will will like it and need it. I want to make sure that it's valuable before I take the time and invest to create it.
Yeah, I think agents are best for researching stuff for you. Maybe like it can be handy for content creation as well to like go and like find trends in the industry that you want to create content about, and like just summarize them for you, and like like ideate some ideas for you. Like in those areas, agents might make sense. But yeah, like thank you for the suggestions, and I love to know how 2025 will unfold. Like all things AI for us. So I think we're coming to an end to of the webinar. And we're also posting some links to the chat. Ashley has a great course on Maven for building your GTM, your go-to-market strategy with AI, and how to implement AI in your strategy. And also, I wanted to mention that this is part of a series webinar that we're doing on Flowgen. And make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram, wherever you're active, to get to know about the upcoming sessions. We're going to talk about all things AI in content marketing, and how you can build your AI strategy in content marketing. And speaking of which, mark your calendars for January 29th. We have Ross Simmons as our guest speaker, and he's going to talk about search everything optimization, which is the new trend for SEO. And yeah, you can like join us for that one. We're going to share the links in we're going to share the links on our LinkedIn and our Instagram, so stay tuned. And thank you all for attending this session. I'm so happy to have you all here, and see you at the next one.